This is the Cycle of Women's Success podcast, and we are sponsored by Radnet Media, which is my media company. And I am so excited to welcome Katie Lepper. And you're a franchise coach, correct?
Yep, franchise coach. So basically, I'm a matchmaker when I'm working with a client, finding everything that is important to them in a business. What their dream scenario would be. I help them build that business model, and then I find a franchise that will match those needs. In
Awesome.
short, yeah.
In short, if we really want to narrow it down. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. So this podcast is about women, our cycle, our hormones, and all the things that come up. And I guess most people feel like they hold you back, right? Like these are things that can be roadblockers or get in our way and just hold us back. And when at times it feels like that, we still have so many women in life and business that succeed regardless of these things. So my discovery, I guess I could say in this season, is what are some of those things that for you just fly off the top of your head? And I like to get into this question fast because I know it's like the core of what we're going to talk about. And then it always feeds into business, life, mom, right? Like everything like that. So what has been your experience with your success and your business through things like that?
Sure. So for me, the biggest thing when we talk about women in business and women's life and hormones, mine has definitely been the hormone side. Being in my mid 40s, about 2 years ago, I started feeling kind of icky and just not like myself. And I couldn't think, like the ADD was off the chart. I was gaining weight, losing hair, all these things. And so I was like, oh, this is probably it. It's a hormonal shift. And it definitely was. Unfortunately, and I think many women experience this. You go to so many different specialists. Oh, it's this, it's that. Get on this medication, get on that medication. And I never settled. I said, absolutely not. And, when you're going through hormonal changes and come to find out it was Hashimoto's as well, my body was just not itself. So, I'm trying to be a mom to a neurodivergent child. I'm trying to run my own business and smile and like be happy. And it was really hard. And I feel conversations like these and talking to other women about it, we're not alone and we're not crazy. But
Yeah.
it was a tough thing. I think one of the biggest things for me that I was able to get through this successfully is working for myself.
Okay.
I had the flexibility to take time off and get blood work done, to talk to this specialist or that specialist. I was able to take the time off when I wanted to. I know, and I even thought about it when I wasn't feeling well and I wasn't, I had brain fog and I was feeling tired, or even my muscles and bones hurt. If I was working for somebody else, I probably would have gotten fired, because you have to do what they want you to do when you want to do it. They don't care about your physical or mental health. So I think one of the biggest blessings of working for myself was I was able to put myself first and my health first, because if I'm not healthy physically and mentally, how can I be a good coach? How can I be a good mom? So it all kind of circles back to what I do for a living. I work for myself and I'm helping people work for themselves too.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So when we talk about franchise coaching, how did that start for you?
By accident.
As all great things do, right?
Yeah. I was in the special events industry in Atlanta and Phoenix for over 20 years. And then the pandemic happened. Well, whether I was doing weddings, corporate catering, whatever it is, like none of that was happening. So I had to like take a few steps back. Like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Because now, at first I was scared, but I have this opportunity to do whatever I want. And I knew from past positions, I didn't want to be at somebody's beck and call. I'm a grown woman. I don't need to ask for time off. It's not fair. I want to be able to go to my kids' play, So the biggest thing I was looking for a new career was, where am I going to have freedom? What can I do to be my own boss? And I was really picky. So I started looking at franchises. because you're your own boss there, but you have the support of a franchise. So when I was looking at the franchises, I met an amazing woman who really liked me and gave me an opportunity. She told me about franchise consultants and what they do. And I was like, yeah, I'm super interested. I'm naturally a matchmaker, a networker. I love this. And the more I learned, I was like, oh, I'm in. So that's how I got into this by accident. But it's been such a natural fit for me. And maybe it's the mama bear. I want to help people. I want to care for them and get them into better situations. And I think it helps because I was there once. I,
Right.
worked for somebody, many other people that I wasn't happy, and I
Right.
was just an employee. So
Yeah.
that's how I
That's
somehow
awesome.
got into this. Yeah.
And somehow here we are. I feel
Here
like
we
that's a
are.
lot of us, right? Like
For
all of a
sure.
sudden your life takes a turn, and if you go with it, you never know where you're going to end up. That might be amazing.
Yeah.
So that's very brave of you,
Yeah. Thank
because
you.
COVID and the events industry was definitely not happening. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I feel sad just thinking about it.
Yeah. Actually, at that point, I was doing corporate catering in
Mhm.
Phoenix. So big offices, like
Yeah.
big tech companies doing events and feeding them. And it was March 16th. They weren't in their offices. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay.
Oh my
What's
gosh.
happening? So it was weird. It was a weird time.
And you had like a neurodivergent 6-year-old, right? At the same
That,
time.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So I got to homeschool while figuring out
Mhm.
what I wanted to do when I
Yeah.
grew up. Um, a kindergartner,
Oh,
first grader. Yeah, it was tough.
yeah, it's not fun to homeschool kindergarten. I'm like, are you getting any of this?
Hello. Yeah,
Are you look at me at least one time? But somehow
exactly.
they learn. Somehow
I
they learn through
do.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's awesome. So what was that like? Because you have 2 children, right?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
So my oldest, she's an adult now. Um, and this kind of goes back to really wanting to work for myself. I was a single mom with her. So it was before care and after care. I never had the chance to do, if I had to, I couldn't have homeschooled her. But we missed out on a lot because I was working for other people and I had to be there at certain times.
Right.
So, with my son and having the opportunity to work for myself, and the pandemic was a blessing in disguise. Then that's a whole weird statement, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
No, I
time
know
to
what you mean.
sit back, um, I, I didn't want to miss out on him, and he
Mhm.
needed me so bad.
Yeah.
And now that school has started, I'm able to, or I was last year, able to walk him to school, go to those meetings, volunteer, be there at the school, because I think that's incredibly important, especially if you have
Mhm.
a child with any kind of learning difference or special needs. You need to be there, and everyone knows who
Mhm.
you are. Everyone treats your kid good. So, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, through the pandemic for me with Dominic, and they're about this, I think they're a year apart, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it was a blessing in disguise because while we were pushing him to be out more and he was doing better with that, he still had like limited resources at home, and getting him out to a therapist, getting him out to a play group, it was draining. It was like a set it up, get it going, be there, get home, cool down, the whole thing, where I know that that's important, but also during the pandemic, there were so many resources at home now where people were meeting online. He was learning how to use the computer.
yeah,
Like I just feel like certain things grew that maybe wouldn't have. Like he is very good on the computer, where he'll like figure all this stuff out by himself. So now he's like logging into his tutoring. He's got his passwords. And he's young enough to be like, maybe I need some help with that. But
yeah.
with his delay, I feel like he might have needed help with those things for longer than if he was forced to do it at an earlier age. So he is very independent at 10 on his education.
No,
So
I'm sure.
yeah, we're not
I'm.
even allowed to be in the room. He's like, wait.
I love that.
He just looks at
And
you like this.
yeah, and with Brody being they're around the same age, I was able to really as a working mom, you really don't get to spend a lot of time with your kids. You don't see them in the classroom setting. I was able to get to know my kid on a different level and realize how incredibly bright he was. So I can fight for him harder. He's not a troublemaker. He's not this, that. He just thinks very differently. His body and brain works differently, and we need to celebrate it.
Right.
So, which unfortunately in lots of schools, they don't celebrate it. They're a problem child and
Right.
yeah, not my kid. You're not going to do that to him. We get mama bear,
I
you
know.
know?
I know.
So.
It's definitely great. So through all of the shifts in your life, the shifts with COVID and your hormones and learning this and going to your specialist, what is something that you practice that maybe other people can do or that you didn't know you should be doing in order to keep yourself feeling good?
Sure. Self-care is the biggest thing. And it's something I think a majority of us moms and working moms will put last. And taking the time to meditate, for me, yoga has been a huge blessing. I am not super flexible. I'm not doing handstands and all the weird stuff, but I go in there and I have an hour to myself and I can breathe and think about my body and the way it moves and be proud of myself and proud of my body. That's been huge. So I'm
Right.
moving, so I'm getting, I'm moving my body, but the mental side of it too, I think is very important, especially through menopause. And even with thyroid issues, a lot of workouts you can't do. That cortisol is pumping too much. You need low impact. So things like that, you feel productive, you feel good, you took that time to yourself and you're doing healthy things. So that's been a huge game changer for me through all this fun changes. It's like the second
What
puberty. It's awesome.
I know, my God, it's like enough, right?
Yeah.
What was the specialist that you went to go see, or how many different kinds did you find?
Sure. So I did a lot of research on my own. I prefer to do things naturally before I go to a doctor. So I
Sure.
was, the supplements and the different, even foods that can help you through hormonal changes and thyroid stuff. But I wasn't feeling good. And I spent a lot of money on supplements and powders for smoothies. So I went to a naturopath and she was like, let's focus on your thyroid because it's not working. No wonder you feel like this. How are you surviving? I'm like, I don't know. I just had to do it. But now that I know, it's like, oh, cool. So we did acupuncture and we did more intense supplements, but I still needed a bit more. So I went to um, a functional medicine doctor who just focuses on hormones. So I was doing the bioidentical hormone replacement. Game changer, game changer. But with our bodies change. Where the hormones are different each month, and I found I needed to find somebody a little bit more focused on just like women's health and the thyroid stuff. So I went through a few gynecologists and even like online women's programs, just studying them. And there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there that
Wow.
target us. That
Yeah.
it's a lot of money and it's a shame too. It's such a shame because
Mhm.
we're desperate. We want to feel better so we can function. Um, so I'm still on my journey, but going to the naturopath and going to the functional medicine doctor it made me feel like myself again, even
Yeah.
better. I think with these hormonal shifts, it happens quite some time before you're like, what is happening to me? So yeah, it's a journey and I have to be careful of what I'm putting in my body and different foods I'm eating. But yeah, my biggest warning I'll talk about this all day long. My biggest warning to people is don't settle. You go to these gynecologists that say they focus on women's health and they know nothing
Yeah.
about menopause and perimenopause, and they want to throw you on synthetic hormones. And the biggest thing, they want to throw you on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Here, how do you need this, that? And I was like,
Right.
no, I know there's something else. So
It's
yeah, it's a
scary.
journey. It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah. Because then you're changing again in a different way. And then it doesn't mean you're going to be yourself, even though you feel better. Like my
Yeah.
mother is on the antidepressant. She takes a time. She's like, it's so small, but she's still not how she was when we were growing up. you know, it's like one extreme. She's either this extreme or that extreme, but I don't think she still feels like herself. So she's on a journey in her 70s to figure out, okay, it's been over a decade of doing this.
Yeah.
And my relationships aren't better. You know, my outlook isn't better. I want to be around to see my granddaughter get married. You know what I mean? Like, what can I do to make sure that I get back to myself? Because she's actually an extremely brilliant person. And I think, you know, she's had some other struggles, but she's lost that in this medication.
For sure.
You know?
For sure. Yeah. And I think the antidepressants are important for some people, but I think there's so much other stuff going on we have to figure out. And for your mom to be in her 70s and saying, I'm not doing this, I want to figure this out, it's huge. Because I talk to my mom and other women in their 70s, they it's just like, here's a downer, here's a whatever. You just get through it. Oh, it's middle age. You're going to gain weight. You're going to be sad.
Well, they
You're
trust the doctor.
Drink more.
They're the doctor. Drink more.
Yeah.
Well, they're the doctor generation, right? Like,
for sure.
Their parents were children of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And now they come from that and the doctor explosion where anybody could be an MD. It wasn't just one per town kind of thing.
Yeah.
Was, you know, evolving. So now it was like, oh my God, all these brilliant people, whatever they say is, you know, God. And now we're in this new generation, their children are like, I don't know what they were selling, but this is not, it's not the way to go. Like, even with, there's just so many levels of things with pharmaceuticals and your body that you really need to be wary of for anything, right? Like, there's always a better way. Maybe there's not. Sometimes we need medicine, but
for sure.
I mean, it just does. I just don't know if we need it for everyday life. Like, now you have a thyroid. Was it a thyroid or no? You said autoimmune disease.
Yeah. So Hashimoto's is the autoimmune disease, and it's basically it's hypothyroid. Like, my thyroid was like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to do anything today. And when your thyroid doesn't work, nothing's working. So. But the doctors, medication's important sometimes, for sure, but why not do everything we can to get to the root of it and figure it out? And our generation, I think it's the Gen X and millennials, we're rocking it. We're breaking all sorts of generational curses.
We've been through it.
Financial, medical, the way we raise our children, like, we are really, we're stepping up. And I love that. We're fighting for our health and we're fighting for our families. Not that our kids did it.
not that
they loved us. That's what they do.
They're like, you'll be fine.
Same.
But I think the why don't we is because we don't know. So, like, a big reason I've created this podcast is because I went into pregnancy and childbirth not knowing so many things. And there was the one end where I'm like, I'm not going to look up everything because it's going to freak me out. And not everything is going to happen, right, to everybody. I want to have my own journey, but also I didn't realize that there were so many things that I should have been watching on the external.
Yeah.
You know, not just like what you're eating and drinking, but or supplements that you could be taking in addition to what they're giving you, but there's what doctors I should have been seeing a chiropractor, especially because my third pregnancy, I kept throwing my back out.
Oh, Lord.
You know what I mean? Like, and just because like I picked up a toy, not because of anything else. I should have been seeing a nutritionist because I was very close to having high sugar and I was being very careful. Like I was like, okay, I have to be the most careful. You know, like I should have had all of these people in my corner that I didn't even know exist until now.
Yeah.
And my youngest is 4 soon.
Yeah.
So, you know, why don't we? Because we don't know. Nobody tells us. And the people who tell us, who are the holistic doctors, the functional medicine, we don't believe them.
Yeah.
Because they might not be coming from experience. You know, like my uncle is a functional medicine doctor and a chiropractor in New Jersey, but he's a man. Are we all going to believe what he says about us going through menopause?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure we're going to meet that with, okay, doc. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like my mother would be like, okay.
Yeah.
She wouldn't very much pay attention.
Right.
So I think conversations like this are so important, especially when we're like working for ourselves, going to school and trying to figure everything out on our own anyway, you know.
Yeah. And I
There's
feel
no
like
handbook.
there's no handbook, and there never has been. But I think, again, our generations are so different because we're career women
Yeah.
and mothers, and you homeschool your kids. You got a neurodivergent child. Like there's a lot that we do, and we don't give ourselves enough grace. And it is conversations like these that, girl, you're doing so good. I'm so proud of you. And it's okay. You feel like crap today. It's totally fine. It's normal.
Yeah.
We need these conversations because it's a lonely place. It really can be a lonely place.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of education, I'm like a canary. I'm like, go to college when you're 35. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? It can't be a race.
Be happy.
It can't be a race for some of us. My daughter, she's on a race. She's on a race to be a vet and a pediatrician at the same time.
I can see that.
She's totally decided that on her own. She even did some research the last time we went to the pediatrician's office. She was asking our doctor if she could do both. And the pediatrician's answering her, like, logistically. She's like, yes, well, you would have to do this and this. And I'm like, should I be taking notes?
Victoria's got you. You're fine.
Like, they're having this full-on, like, planning discussion. It was so funny.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah. Women are so interesting at an early age. And I know that we get into this adolescent teen kind of ickiness, right? Like we all have to go through that, but it's also a rite of passage. And if you build core values, then it's easy to keep them if you have them young. But I know that we are very interesting at an early age now after having my own daughter. Like there's me thinking about myself, but then seeing her and all of these wonderful things that come through her mind, and just letting that like evolve. Like she's even filling in the boys because they just think differently.
They're little cavemen.
Yeah, it's like, I'm hungry because I see food.
Yeah.
I want, it's like Carmine asks 1,000 questions and he's very curious, but Victoria's like telling us these stories about things. And it's probably mostly fictional what she's saying, but she's like painting her picture and he's like doing the market research. He's like, I need to know how big the earth is before I draw a plant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's two totally different things.
It's so funny.
You know, he's like, your flower is way bigger than that patch of grass. It'll never work. And she's like, what are you talking about?
It's so our brains are so different. There's, through my hormone stuff and luckily we have all these options like through Instagram and online, all these doctors and specialists that we can follow. The brain, Dr. Amen. I don't know if you follow him. He's a brain doctor, brain specialist. The stuff that he talks about of like where we're thinking and where men are thinking and blood flow and then the hormones of why we're feeling, it's crazy. We are two different creatures.
Yeah. Like the mess I can tolerate 90% of the time, like I am not the cleaner upper. I will scrub all of the countertops, but then I'll just put everything right back where it was. And but one part of the month there it is, and I'm like, why is this all still here? And yet it's me who just like left with it, right?
Your other self. That's so funny.
Oh my God! But what advice? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, with your boys being the age they are, I noticed Brody. I have a daughter, so I knew the hormonal shift. And then the boys. I was just emailing his teacher. She's like, 5th grade is hard for boys. I'm like, oh, they do it too. She's a whole different hormonal change. But Lord have mercy, the emotions.
I've definitely started seeing a change. I'm not prepared for the boy shifting, like the
It's weird.
whole, yeah, becoming a man thing.
Mm,
Oh my gosh, I'm nervous.
stinky boys.
What advice do you have for women getting into franchising, like being a franchise investor? Do you see a lot of women that are like interested in that now? Or is it like more women than men? How does that work out?
For sure. I see a huge influx of women doing this. I think, you know, again, this is a generational thing. You know, men own the businesses and more women are boss babes and CEOs and owning businesses. And I love all my clients. I love my boss babe clients. This again, this helps them. They have their own business. They have the freedom and flexibility. They're able to, if they had issues like me, are able to take the time for themselves. I think women, especially that have been working even at CEO level, they're tired. They want to have that time at home with their kids now. So more and more women clients I have are leaving big corporations to be their own boss.
Wow. And
Yeah,
they
for
can
sure.
be hands-on or in the background, right? Like there's
Yeah,
such an option there, isn't there?
right. Yeah. So with semi-absentee ownership, you stay high level and you have more of a team that's taking care of the day-to-day uh, things at this business. And then owner operator, you're more the face of the business. So you really can pick and choose how involved you want to be. And that's what I help my clients do. How involved do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want somebody else doing for you? Who's around you? What are their jobs and tasks? So a lot of people too they'll keep their corporate job for several years and the semi-absentee will be their retirement. So this
Wow.
business is booming in the next 5 years and they retire and this thing's already running for them. So they
Right.
can go on that vacation and do all the fun things they always wanted to do. So
What do you
that's
see trending in franchises coming up?
So this is a question that everybody asks me, and because everything it's so catered to exactly what you're looking for. Um, Industries you can work in any industry. We really focus on that business model, but there is a lot of movement in the senior care industry because as we were talking earlier, it's the silver tsunami. Our parents are baby boomers. So that's a huge industry, whether it's estate sales or in-home care, locating nursing homes, things of that nature. Home services, I always feel is super solid. This is everything from the enhanced type of options, remodeling a kitchen, getting a brand new closet all organized and beautiful, all the way to a plumber. Uh, these home services thrived during the pandemic.
Right. They
If
did.
you have a clogged toilet or your dryer's not working, you got wet laundry in the wash, then you've got to get this fixed immediately. So I think
Hmm.
I've seen a big push in that, but also a lot of those can be a lower investment. They're very easy to scale and grow. So maybe start small, take over the next town or the next county. So
Hmm.
lots of flexibility with home services.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about franchising, I think about like cupcakes.
Well, maybe that's your vision, girl.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I have the sweet tooth. I just like, I don't know. It just gives, or the gym or like gyms, right? Like
Yeah.
that was a big thing in New Jersey. I don't know if it's everywhere, but like
Yeah,
opening a gym franchise.
for
So,
sure.
but I didn't even, the two things that you mentioned, I didn't even think of. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
There's
There's so
there's a
much.
there's a franchise for everything. Literally a franchise for everything. The basics like your food, and then even a majority of the trucks you see driving around that are home services, that is a franchise. Um, After school ballet classes, STEM centers, like again, the estate sales, that's a franchise. Being a business coach, there's a barbecue cleaning. I mean, there is a
Wow.
franchise for everything.
Yeah.
So lots of
Well,
options.
we just went to a Shark Tank reunion. Um, I guess it was like not a seminar, but it was like a 3-day event in Tampa. And I just randomly got invited because I've never been on Shark Tank. They're like, "What episode were you on?" I'm like,
That's hilarious. I saw your videos
but
from it.
I
Looked
don't
awesome.
care. I
Yeah.
show up. I'm like, oh, I'm just a guest. So I was listening to the college hunks that haul
Yeah.
junk. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
Know those
there
guys.
and I think he lives locally.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how that started. It was here, and now it's this huge franchise. And they showed the map of everything that was on there. And he was talking about being a franchise owner, when somebody joins his team. And I guess it was like a team building thing. He's like, so when we look at team building in the eyes of our company, then you have your franchise owners. That is another team that we're building.
Yeah.
And I immediately thought of you because there's so many dynamics here. Like I can see that being a culture, right? Like we have and he even said that that's our employee culture, our customer culture. And then there's our franchise owner culture.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I never thought about it like that. It was
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad you got to see them. Yeah. That's one of the many, I have over 600 franchises that I work with, but that's one of them. I was just at their, location this time last year, taking a tour, getting to know, their process. They've got a great team, but those guys have a
yeah,
great story. They're
they
still very
do.
involved, which is really neat.
Yeah, they're
So
very involved. And I've even used them in real estate to
yeah.
empty a house once. And the guys who came were just the sweetest. The woman who owned the house was not the sweetest. And I'm like, leave them alone. They're
Don't
good
hurt my
boys. I know. It was like, oh my God. Okay, so my last question for you is, do you have a story about being an entrepreneur where you just didn't feel like doing it that day, but you went ahead and you accomplished something great?
That's a funny question. And that kind of goes back to over the last 2 years of my journey of hormones and thyroid stuff. Yeah, there were some days that I just, I was tired. I was
Mm,
physically and mentally drained, but I powered through it. And just the joy I get from my clients, I'm helping. It's almost like we're shopping for this whole new life. So to
mhm,
hear their excitement, and then when I introduce them to options that, sometimes you're like, how could you pick 4 options that fit me perfectly? That makes my day. So those tough days where I wasn't feeling 100%, the
mhm.
joy and success, in their lives that I'm helping with them with, that that cheers me up. That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And to have that, not just be there for them, but for that for you is so
Yeah.
empowering
Yeah.
because we need a reason to keep moving through things.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
is there anything that you want us to know about franchise coaching or what you do that we didn't touch upon?
Um, well, basically I can help make your dreams come true. No, I'm just kidding. Um, that's cheesy.
Please.
I will help you. Um, it's always worth a peek, even if you are happy in your job, or if you are thinking maybe I want to start my own business, you to look at these franchises and learn about the process is very educational part of my process. And I tell my clients, franchising isn't for everybody. This is part of our process. Let's look into these, see if you enjoy this support and you enjoy this blueprint, this already successful business model. If you like that, or you might want more control or do something on your own, or you might want to work for somebody the rest of your life. This is part of the process. So it's always worth a peek. People assume franchisers are McDonald's and they're millions of dollars. It's definitely what I call normal people investments. There's plenty of normal people investments that we're all capable of doing. And even funding, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, there's so many options for funding. You don't have to have millions of dollars in cash just to be able to be a franchise owner. It's far more attainable than people think.
That's awesome. Thank you so
Yes.
much.